You're over 50, and here's what nobody told you. The next decade isn't about starting over. It's about protecting what you've built and strategically positioning yourself so the final working years don't drain everything you've earned. Most people your age are making 3 catastrophic mistakes right now that will cost them their retirement security, and I've spent 94 years, yes, you heard that right, watching these patterns destroy financial futures. In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through these 3 critical moves that separate those who retire with dignity from those who work until they physically cannot. And if you stay with me until the end, you'll discover exactly how to bulletproof your financial life before time runs out on your earning years. So before we dive in, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from, because every single person over 50 needs to hear this message. Your future self is counting on the decisions you make in the next 90 days. The window is closing, and let me be direct with you. I'm Milton Friedman. I was born in 1912, lived through the Great Depression, witnessed every market crash, every economic revolution, and every financial mistake humans are capable of making. And I've seen one pattern repeat itself with mathematical certainty. People in their 50s believe they have more time than they actually do. They don't. You don't. And that's not pessimism, that's arithmetic. When you're 50, you have maybe 10 to 15 productive earning years left, maybe. Your body won't cooperate forever. Your industry won't wait for you. And the market certainly won't care about your timeline. The decisions you make right now, not next year, not when things settle down, but right now, will determine whether your 70s are spent in quiet security or desperate scarcity. And here's the hard truth most financial advisors won't tell you. If you're 50 and you haven't built substantial savings yet, you're not behind schedule. You're in a completely different race now. One that requires different rules, different strategies, and absolute clarity about what matters. Most people your age are trapped in what I call the hope and delay pattern. They hope the next promotion covers the gap. They hope their home equity will somehow be enough. They hope Social Security will be generous. They delay the hard conversations, the lifestyle cuts, the portfolio restructuring. And hope, my friend, is not a strategy. It's a prayer. And the market doesn't answer prayers. It answers preparation. Here's what makes your 50s different from every other decade. In your 30s, you had time to recover from mistakes. In your 40s, you still had earning power and runway. In your 50s, you have neither unlimited time nor unlimited energy. What you have is one final window where your experience, your income, and your decision-making capability are all at their peak. But the window is closing fast, and every month you spend pretending otherwise is a month you can't get back. So let me ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. Even if it hurts, if you lost your job tomorrow, how long could you survive without touching your retirement accounts? If the answer is less than 12 months, you're exposed. If you're carrying debt that will still exist when you're 65, you're exposed. If your retirement savings are less than 5 times your annual income right now, you're not just behind, you're in danger. And danger at 50 looks very different than danger at 30 because there's no time left to outrun it. Move number 1, eliminate every dollar that doesn't serve your future. This is going to sting, but you need to hear it. Your 50s are not the time to enjoy life a little. They're the time to make absolutely certain you'll have a life to enjoy in your 70s. And that means cutting every single expense that doesn't directly contribute to your survival or your security. Not reducing, not moderating. Cutting with precision, with ruthlessness, with zero sentimentality. I've studied human behavior and economic decision-making for 7 decades. And here's what I know. People in their 50s are funding lifestyles they can't afford with money they don't have, convinced they've earned comfort. But comfort is expensive, and expensive at 50 means broke at 70. The lifestyle you're living right now is either building your future or destroying it. There's no neutral ground. Every subscription, every car payment, every dinner out, every weekend trip is a choice between present pleasure and future security. And most people your age are choosing wrong. Let me show you what cutting actually looks like. Not in theory, but in practice. Your housing should be no more than 25% of your gross income. If it's higher, You have three choices: earn more, move smaller, or accept that you're sacrificing retirement security for square footage. And before you tell me you can't possibly move, let me remind you, your attachment to that house is emotional, not financial. The house doesn't care about you. It's a structure. And if that structure is consuming resources you need for survival in your 70s, it's not a home, it's a liability. Your cars, if you're making car payments over $300 a month total, and I mean total, for all vehicles combined. You bought status, not transportation. Sell them. Yes, even if you love that car, even if it's almost paid off, even if your neighbors will notice. Your neighbors aren't going to fund your retirement. Drive something boring, something reliable, something that costs you nothing but insurance and gas. I drove the same modest car for years, not because I couldn't afford better, but because I understood that wealth isn't what you drive. It's what you keep, subscriptions and convenience spending. This is where most people your age are hemorrhaging money without even realizing it. Streaming services, gym memberships you don't use, meal delivery, premium cable, software subscriptions, memberships to clubs you visit twice a year. Add them up. Right now, every single recurring charge, I'll wait, got the number? Now cut half of them. Not the ones you might use, not the ones that are only $15 a month, half. Because $200 a month in subscriptions is $2,400 a year. Invested over 10 years at a modest 7% return, that's $33,000 change, that's survival money. That's here. Cutting expenses isn't about deprivation. It's about clarity. It's about looking at every dollar you spend and asking, is this dollar serving my 70-year-old self or my ego? Most people can't answer that question honestly because they've never asked it. They spend on autopilot, funding a lifestyle they assembled by accident, not design. And that's how you wake up at 62, realize you can't afford to retire, and spend the next decade resenting every choice you made in your 50s. Do you know what the wealthy do differently? They live below their means for decades, not because they're cheap, but because they understand that freedom costs discipline. Warren Buffett still lives in a house he bought in 1958, not because he can't afford better, because he doesn't confuse spending with success. And neither should you. Your 50s are not the time to signal prosperity. They're the time to build it. Quietly, methodically, without applause. So here's your assignment, and I want you to do this before the day ends. Open your bank statements for the last 90 days. Highlight every recurring charge, every convenience purchase, every discretionary expense. Now ask yourself, if I were 70 years old, broke and desperate, which of these expenses would I wish I had cut? Cut those today, not tomorrow, today. Because every day you delay is another day of financial hemorrhaging you can't recover. Move number 2, treat your portfolio like your life depends on it. Because it does, let's talk about your investments. And I don't mean the abstract concept of having a portfolio. I mean the actual holdings sitting in your retirement accounts right now. Can you name them? Can you explain what they do? Can you justify why you own them? If you can't answer all three questions clearly, and I mean clearly, not vaguely, you're not investing, you're guessing. And guessing with your retirement at 50 is catastrophic. Here's what I've observed across a century of economic history. Most people treat their retirement accounts like magic boxes. They contribute when they remember. They own funds they don't understand. And they panic and sell at exactly the wrong moments. Then they wonder why compounding doesn't work for them. Compounding works. It always works. But it only works if you don't sabotage it with ignorance, emotion, and activity. And most people your age are guilty of all three. The first rule of portfolio management after 50 is this. You don't have time to recover from stupid. In your 30s, you could buy speculative garbage, watch it crash, and have 20 years to rebuild. At 50, a 40 loss takes years to recover from, and you don't have years to spare. This doesn't mean you abandon equities completely. That's a different kind of stupid. It means you stop treating your portfolio like a casino and start treating it like the only thing standing between you and poverty in your 70s. Quality matters now more than ever. And quality doesn't mean expensive stocks. Quality means businesses with durable competitive advantages. Companies that will still exist and still be profitable in 20 years, regardless of what the economy does. Companies with pricing power, low debt, consistent cash flow and management that isn't gambling with shareholder capital. If you can't identify these characteristics in the stocks you own, you don't own quality, you own lottery tickets. Let me be specific because vague advice is useless. You should own no more than 8 to 12 individual positions, and you should understand every single one well enough to explain it to a skeptical 12-year-old. If you can't do that, you either need to educate yourself immediately or admit you don't have the time or temperament for individual stock selection, and that's fine. There's no shame in owning low-cost index funds. There's tremendous shame in losing half your retirement because you thought you were smarter than the market. Now, diversification. Everyone talks about diversification like it's a magic word. It's not. Diversification is only valuable if you're diversifying across things you actually understand. Owning 40 different funds that all hold the same stocks isn't diversification. It's confusion with fees. I've watched people diversify themselves into mediocrity, paying 1 to 2 annual fees for the privilege of underperforming a simple index. That's not sophistication, that's expense. Here's the brutal math. A 1% annual fee on a $500,000 portfolio costs you $5,000 a year. Over 15 years, assuming 7 returns, that fee costs you over $150,000 in lost compounding. That's not a rounding error. That's the difference between retiring at 65 and working until 70. Fees matter, taxes matter, and activity matters because every time you trade, you trigger taxes and reset the compounding clock. The wealthy understand this. They buy quality, hold it, and let time do the work. Impatience is expensive at any age. At 50, it's disqualifying. So what should you actually do? Simple. Open your account. Write down every holding. Next to each one, write one sentence. I own this because. If you can't complete that sentence with something more substantial than my advisor recommended it, or it was in the target date fund, you have work to do. And that work is either learning enough to justify the holding or selling it and simplifying into something you can actually explain and defend. And let's address the elephant in the room. Should you be moving to more conservative investments as you age? The answer is more nuanced than the financial industry wants you to believe. Yes, you need more stability as you approach retirement. No, that doesn't mean selling all your stocks and hiding in bonds earning 3%. Inflation will destroy that strategy. You need growth, but you need smart, patient, high-quality growth, not speculative gambling. A reasonable 50-year-old portfolio might be 60 to 70 equities, 30 to 40 fixed income, but those equities better be quality, and those bonds better be short duration and high credit quality. Here's the question most people your age are terrified to ask, what if I'm already too far behind? Listen carefully. If you're 50 with minimal savings, you have 2 choices. You can panic, do nothing, and guarantee poverty. Or you can accept reality, maximize your savings rate for the next 15 years, live well below your means, and build something modest but functional. It won't be the retirement you dreamed of, but it will be survivable. And survivable beats desperate. Move number 3. Build an unshakable financial fortress before the storms hit your 50s or when life stops being theoretical and starts being expensive in ways you can't predict. Aging parents who need financial help, adult children who boomerang home, health issues that insurance doesn't fully cover, job losses that last 18 months instead of 3. Roofs, transmissions, divorces, deaths, any of these can happen. Several of these probably will happen. And if you're not prepared, even one of these can unravel decades of progress in a matter of months. I've lived through the Great Depression, multiple recessions, wars, and more financial crises than most people read about. And here's what separates those who survive from those who collapse. The survivors expected disaster and prepared for it. The victims hoped for smooth sailing and got blindsided. Expecting disaster doesn't mean living in fear. It means building a financial fortress that can withstand shocks without crumbling. And at 50, that fortress has 3 layers: cash, clarity, and ruthless boundary setting. Cash first. You need 1 full year of non-negotiable expenses and liquid savings. Not 6 months, 1 year. Because at 50, job losses take longer to recover from. Ageism is real. Your skills might be outdated. Your industry might have changed. If you're forced to tap retirement accounts early because you don't have cash reserves, You'll pay penalties, taxes, and destroy years of compounding in a single desperate transaction. Cash isn't earning much interest, so what? Cash is insurance, and insurance has value even when you don't use it. How do you build a year of expenses when you're already behind? The same way you build anything, slowly, consistently, and with discipline. Start with $1,000, then $5,000, then 3 months, then 6, then 12. It might take 2 years. Do it anyway, because the alternative is being 55, unemployed, and forced to choose between draining your 401k or losing your house. That's not a choice you want to make. Clarity second. You need a written plan for every realistic disaster scenario. And I mean written, not in your head, not we've talked about it. Written, on paper, reviewed quarterly. If you lose your job, what gets cut immediately? What's the sequence? How long can you survive before you have to make hard decisions? If a parent needs $2,000 a month in financial help, where does that money come from? If your spouse gets sick and can't work, what's the plan? These are uncomfortable questions. Ask them anyway, because answering them in advance when you're calm is infinitely better than making panic decisions at 2 a.m. in crisis mode. Here's what that written plan includes. Your absolute minimum monthly expenses, the number you could survive on if everything went wrong, your priority list for spending cuts if income drops, first, second, third in order, your rules for debt, what you'll borrow for, what you won't, and under what circumstances, your rules for helping others financially, including family, and your rules for accessing retirement funds early, which should basically be never except to avoid homelessness. Now, the hardest part, boundary setting. At 50, people will need your money. Your aging parents might need care you can't afford. Your adult children might need bailouts you shouldn't provide. Your siblings might expect you to carry burdens that aren't yours. And your friends might judge your lifestyle cuts as stingy or paranoid. Let them judge. Their opinions won't fund your retirement. Your discipline will. I'm going to say something that will make you uncomfortable. You are not responsible for funding other people's poor decisions, even if those people are family. You can love someone deeply and still refuse to destroy your own financial security, to rescue them from consequences they created. That doesn't make you heartless. It makes you sane. And if you don't set those boundaries now in your 50s, when you still have earning power, you'll have no boundaries left to set in your 70s when you're broke and desperate yourself. Can you afford to help your parents? Not do you love them? Can you afford it without jeopardizing your own retirement? If the answer is no, the answer is no. Can you afford to co-sign your child's loan? No. Can you afford to let adult children live with you rent-free indefinitely? No. These aren't easy answers. They're necessary ones. Because martyring yourself financially helps no one. It just means 2 generations in poverty instead of 1. And let's talk about health, because this is where most people over 50 lie to themselves. You're not 30 anymore. Your body is depreciating, and that depreciation accelerates from here. If you're overweight, sedentary, stressed, and ignoring warning signs, you're not just risking your health, you're risking your finances. Medical bankruptcy is real. Chronic illness is expensive. And disability in your 50s means your earning years just ended a decade early. You don't need to become an athlete. You need to stay functional. Eat reasonably. Move daily. Sleep enough. See doctors. Address problems early. Because your health is the foundation everything else rests on. And foundations don't repair themselves. The brutal reality, most financial advisors won't tell you, let me shift gears and tell you what the financial services industry doesn't want you to know. Most retirement advice is designed for people who started saving in their 20s and never stopped. If that's not you, if you're 50 and starting late, most conventional advice is irrelevant or actively harmful. The target date funds, the Monte Carlo simulations, the 4 withdrawal rules, all of that assumes you accumulated wealth for 30 years. You didn't. So those rules don't apply. Here's your reality. If you're 50 with less than 3 times your annual income saved, you're not going to have the retirement you imagine. You're not going to travel the world. You're not going to spend winters in Arizona. You're going to work longer, live smaller, and make peace with modest. And that's okay, as long as you're honest about it now instead of delusional until 68 when you can't work anymore and the math catches up. Working until 70 isn't failure, it's adaptation. And if working until 70 means you can retire with dignity instead of desperation, that's a trade worth making, but only if you make it deliberately, strategically, and with your lifestyle matched to that timeline. If you're planning to work until 70 but still spending like you're retiring at 62, you're not adapting, you're procrastinating toward catastrophe. Social Security will help. It won't be enough. Medicare will help. It won't cover everything. Your home equity might help, but only if you're willing to downsize or reverse mortgage. And both have costs. The idea that you'll figure it out later is not a plan. It's a fantasy. And fantasies don't survive contact with reality. I've seen two. Many people reach 68, realize they can't afford to stop working, and spend their final decades bitter, exhausted, and trapped. Don't be one of them. So what's the alternative? Radical honesty. Look at your current trajectory and project forward. If nothing changes, where will you be at 67? What will your retirement accounts be worth? What will your expenses be? What will Social Security provide? Do the math. Use a calculator. Be conservative. If that projection is terrifying, good. Terror is the beginning of urgency. And urgency might finally push you to make changes you've been avoiding for years. The math doesn't lie. If you're 50 with $100,000 saved and you contribute $1,000 a month for the next 15 years at 7 returns, you'll have roughly $490,000 at 65. Can you live on $20,000 a year from that, plus Social Security? Maybe. If your expenses are low, if you're healthy, if nothing goes catastrophically wrong. Is that the retirement you wanted? No. Is it survivable? Yes. And survivable beats homeless. But if you're 50 with $20,000 saved and you're contributing nothing, you're not retiring. You're working until you physically can't, then you're depending on family, government assistance, or charity. That's not judgment. That's arithmetic. And arithmetic doesn't care about your intentions or your excuses. It only cares about the numbers. So fix the numbers while you still can. Your 90-day action plan, every single step, nothing optional. Let's stop talking theory and start executing. I'm going to give you a 90-day action plan, and I need you to follow it exactly as written. Not when you get around to it, not modified to fit your situation, exactly as written. Because your situation is not unique, it's urgent. And urgency requires discipline, not customization. Week 1, calculate your true expenses, not your current spending, your true survival number. If everything went wrong tomorrow, what's the absolute minimum you could live on for 12 months? Food, housing, utilities, insurance, debt payments, nothing else. Write that number down. That's your fortress number. Every dollar above that is either discretionary or waste. Identify which. Week 2, audit your portfolio. Open every account. Write down every holding. Next to each, write one sentence. I own this because. If you can sell it or commit to learning enough to justify it by week 4. No exceptions. Confusion is expensive. Week 3, check your emergency fund. If it's less than $10,000, stop. Investing until you hit $10,000 cash. Yes, even if you're behind on retirement. You can't compound wealth you're forced to liquidate in crisis. Build the foundation first. Week 4, write your disaster plan. 1 page. Job loss, steps 1 to 5. Parent needs help, max budget and conditions. Adult child needs money, rules, and boundaries. Health crisis, insurance review, and coverage gaps. Keep this document where you can see it monthly. Week 5, eliminate 1 major expense. The second car you don't need. The gym membership you don't use. The subscription package you barely watch. Kill it. Redirect that money immediately to emergency fund or retirement. Automate the redirect so you can't cheat. Week 6, review your insurance. Life insurance if people depend on your income. Disability insurance if you're still working. Long-term care if you can afford it, and if you can't, accept that Medicaid might be your plan. Health insurance deductibles and out-of-pocket maximums. Know your exposure. Week 7, increase your retirement contribution by 2. Just 2. If you're contributing 6, go to 8. If you're contributing nothing, Start with 2. You won't miss it after 2 weeks. Do it again in 6 months. Week 8, have the conversation with your spouse or partner if you have one. Show them the numbers, the disaster plan, the timeline, the boundaries. If they resist, show them this script. If they still resist, go to a financial counselor together. This conversation isn't optional. Your marriage might not survive retirement poverty. Week 9, update your estate documents. Beneficiaries on all accounts, will, power of attorney, health care proxy. If you don't have these, get them. If you have them but haven't reviewed them in 5 years, update them. Death and disability don't wait for convenient timing. Week 10, skill check. Are you still marketable? If you lost your job tomorrow, could you land something comparable in 90 days? If no, spend 20 hours this month fixing that. Update LinkedIn. Take a course. Network. Your career isn't over, but your margin for error is gone. Week 11, run the stress test. Pretend you just got laid off. Walk through your budget. What cuts would you make on day 1? Day 30, day 90? Write them down. This isn't pessimism. It's preparation. Hope for the best, plan for the worst, and you can handle whatever comes. Week 12, review everything. Did your emergency fund grow? Did your retirement contribution increase? Did you kill the dead? Expenses? Did you have the hard conversations? If yes, celebrate quietly and commit to the next quarter. If no, diagnose why and fix the environment, not the goal. Your future self is watching. The final truth about your 50 seconds. No softening, no excuses. Here's what I need you to understand, and I mean really understand, not just nod along and forget in 10 minutes. Your 50s are the final checkpoint before the finish line. Everything you do now either builds the foundation for a survivable retirement or guarantees you'll work until you collapse. There's no middle ground. There's no we'll see how it goes. The math is final. The timeline is fixed. And your decisions in the next 36 months will determine whether your 70s are spent in quiet dignity or loud desperation. I lived through 94 years of economic history. I watched people make every mistake possible with money. And the pattern that repeats with absolute consistency is this. People who succeed financially don't have better luck, better income, or better opportunities. They have better discipline. They spend less than they earn. They invest the difference consistently. They avoid stupidity. And they do all of that for decades, not weeks. That's it. That's the entire secret. There is no magic. There are no shortcuts. There's just math, time, and discipline. You can't control the market. You can't control your health. You can't control what the economy does or whether your employer stays loyal. But you can control your spending. You can control your savings rate. You can control whether you educate yourself or remain ignorant. And you can control whether you face reality now or pretend until it's too late. Those controls are enough if you use them. The people who retire successfully aren't smarter than you. They're just more honest with themselves earlier. They accepted limitations. They made cuts. They said no to things they wanted. They endured years of boring discipline while everyone around them spent freely. And in their 70 seconds, when their free-spending friends are panicking, they're calm because they paid the price when it mattered. That price is due now. In your 50 seconds. You don't get another decade. You don't get a do-over. This is it, the final window. And it's open for maybe 5 more years before your energy drops, your health declines, and your earning power fades. Use this window. Not next year. Not when things settle down. Now, let me leave you with this. I'm not trying to scare you. Fear without. Direction is useless. I'm trying to wake you up. Because most people your age are sleepwalking toward a financial cliff, convinced that somehow, magically, it will all work out. It won't work out unless you make it work out through choices, through cuts, through discipline, through years of small, boring, unglamorous decisions that nobody will applaud but your 75-year-old self will thank you for with tears of relief. You can do this. The math works. The strategies work. But only if you execute them. Not perfectly, just consistently, every month, every year, for the next 15 years. And if you do, you won't be rich, but you'll be okay. And okay is victory when the alternative is catastrophe. Now close this video and do one thing before you do anything else. Open your bank app and schedule an automatic transfer. $100, $500, $1,000, whatever you can, into your emergency fund or retirement account, effective immediately, not next month, immediately, because that transfer is the difference between someone who watched this video and someone who changed their life. The next video will be waiting. Your future won't.